Hello and welcome to this first episode of the ManMade podcast. I'm your host Andrew, and today we will be looking into the life of an amazing man who isn't even really known anymore. Or at least I had never heard about him until I had actually looked him up, probably much to my shame. And to my own disadvantage, considering the absolute inspiration that this man actually is and the legacy that he left. Today we'll be looking into what we can learn from that legacy and how we can think about applying it to our lives and improving who we are as people through it. So I'm excited, I hope you are too, and let's get into it. If I said to you, reverence for life, what would come to mind? Those who know who the quote is attributed to would know that it would be attributed to a man called Albert Schweitzer. Now, I didn't even know who Albert Schweitzer was before I started looking into some of the people who I will talk about over the course of this series. Now, what is so special about Albert Schweitzer to put him on an example of great men of history that we all need to learn from? What he is well known for in his life is mainly his humanitarian work, though he was actually an amazing musician. He was able to play various pieces by Bach, and he would play them on the organ. The organ was his musical instrument of choice. It was the one he would always go back to on the odd occasion when he would be able to get back into Europe. He would always go back to playing that organ. Maybe that was his idea of a little bit of respite from the things he did. So, what were the things he did? The one thing that I'll definitely point out is the thing that he's most known for, despite the fact that he wrote many, many things and then challenged many of the ways of thinking that people had within Christianity. He was in a predominantly Catholic area, which made him a minority anyway as far as his own neighborhood was concerned. But he actually had a very good upbringing, and this very much contributed to the way that he perceived life, the way that he looked at life. He looked at life very differently to ways that other people do. A lot of the people that you or I may know, or even you or I ourselves. He was very much fixated on the idea of life and living things. He loved animals. He loved people. And this is one of the key things about him. You could actually say that his love for living things was borderline pathological, but that is neither here nor there. Really, we are going to look at everything as a whole and see what we can get out of it, what we can learn, and see how it applies to us as individuals. So personality-wise, he would keep to himself. When he found himself in Germany after some of his many trips, he would often sit in the third-class seats. And there's a story of a conductor that came up to him and said, "Why are you sitting on the hard board in the third class?" And he said, "Because they don't do the fourth class anymore." So he was a man who wasn't really looking for luxury. And much later on in his life, when he actually did win the Nobel Peace Prize, looking at some of the things he said, he only really mentions the money when he mentions how he spent it, which was again back on humanitarian work. So the humanitarian work that he did, what was that? Because I guess that's really the question. The work he did in a place called Lambaréné, which is on the west coast of Africa. It's just to the west of the Congo Basin. This was a place where he built a hospital. And the place where he built it was a place that you could only really get to very easily by riverboat, just to give you a rough idea of what he did. So before coming here, just to put this into context, Schweitzer spent 6 years to learn medicine before traveling to this African country to open up his own hospital. Now, yeah, I realize that everybody who does medicine, has to do the 6 years. But this is a man who had already done he's got 2 degrees at this point. And despite rampant opposition from friends, families, and all sorts telling him, you might not even be able to make it as a doctor. We don't even know if that's something you can even do. But despite this, he went and did it anyway. He got he passed and got his ability to become a physician. And then after that, he went to Africa and started building that hospital. When he was there, he helped many, many people, did some crazy humanitarian work. He would help building and would often build a lot of the things alongside the people himself, like little huts. He helped build the hospital. So after spending some time there, war broke out in Europe. And long story short, he became a type of prisoner of war, meaning that he had to leave the hospital work that he had started. Though he did get out in the end, he did experience a lot of hardship. And even when he did finally get out, there was a period where he wasn't able to continue his work because he was so in debt. He had to spend another 5 years trying to build up enough money alongside with some friends to carry on the work at the hospital. This is a real powerful message of dedication. The ability to just keep going. It's why I say it's almost on the level of pathological, because this man was unstoppable. He had a vision and he went for it. Now, this did have downsides. Don't get me wrong. He didn't actually see his grandchildren growing up at all, really. When he left to start the hospital, that was the last time he ever saw his mother. His wife, who helped him with the building, the initial build, and the work down there, due to health issues, had to travel back to Europe. And according to the biography, he died out there in Africa, so he didn't even have his wife around. I guess this is the flip side of the coin of dedication, is that Albert was not a stranger to sacrifice, and he knew sacrifice very, very well. And this is something that I think that we need to really remember. One thing that his work definitely cautions people against is to consider, at least first, the responsibilities that dedicating yourself to the needs of others can demand of you, and that you should never take such things lightly. His overall philosophy, and what ultimately won him his Nobel Peace Prize, was that amazing 3 words, reverence for life. He believed that reverence for life is a concept that develops from observation of the world around us. In Civilization and Ethics, he expresses it in these words: ethics is nothing other than reverence for life. Reverence for life affords me my fundamental principle of morality, namely that good consists in maintaining, assisting, and enhancing life. And to destroy, to harm, or to hinder life is evil. I mean, those are some powerful words, and there's no ifs or buts about it. This is a man who understood that to commit to other people unnecessary suffering is a perfectly good definition of evil. And though Albert's view of this himself might seem quite extreme to us, for example, how he would describe cutting down a tree as a sacrifice, if it was something that had to be done, he didn't want to cut down trees unnecessarily. But bringing it back to the subject at hand, what does this mean for us? What does the life of Albert Schweitzer mean for us? I mean, considering that he was only really stopped by a war that was spanning the globe, with the mindset like his, how much positive change could he have made to the lives of so many people? And how can we make a lasting change to the people that we come across in our lives? Albert very much believed in doing. He didn't think, I'll leave the problem to somebody else. He said, I see a problem and I'm going to dedicate my life to solving it. How do we respond to that? I mean, that is truly inspirational. And it's true that we don't all have to change the world. Though it's probably worth mentioning that we do all change the world in our own small little way, in our own small little part of the world that we inhabit. We do make changes, and maybe we can consider that everything we do actually does matter. Maybe we should all have at least a little bit of a reverence for life, and to aim to alleviate the suffering around us, even in a small way. I'm not saying that we have to pack up our bags and move somewhere, but let us think about the work that Albert did and the world that he was trying to create. A man who must have dedicated over 50 years of his life to this one sole project. That is some dedication. When was the last time that we felt that dedicated about something? It's amazing what a single man can do with enough drive, with enough passion, with enough dedication, with enough commitment. A man can do pretty much anything. So why don't we make it something good? And now I will say thank you very much for listening, and stay tuned for another great lesson from another great man next week. Thanks for listening.
The brotherhood of those who bear the mark of pain. Who are the members of this brotherhood? Those who have learned by experience what physical pain and bodily anguish mean belong together all the world over. They are united by a secret bond. One and all, they know the horrors of suffering to which man can be exposed. And one and all, they know the longing to be free from pain. He who has been delivered from pain must not think he is now free again and at liberty to take up life just as it was before, entirely forgetful of the past. Now he is a man whose eyes are opened with regard to pain and anguish. And he must help others to overcome this pain and this anguish, as far as human power can overcome them, and bring to others the deliverance which he himself has received. One must be careful not to mix himself up uninvited in other people's business. On the other hand, one must not forget the danger lurking in the reserve which daily life forces on all of us. We cannot let ourselves get frozen into regarding everyone we do not know as an absolute stranger. No man is ever completely a stranger to his fellow man. Man belongs to man. Man has claims on man. Our reserve is condemned to be broken down by the claims of the heart. And thus all of us get into a position where we must reach out and to one of our fellow men become ourselves a man.